And I'm actually not making a philosophy video right now, even though I probably should be getting up on that soon. Not giving up, I said getting up. So remember that. But anyway, this is not a philosophical thing in the least, unless you want it to be. It's called martial arts. Now, it's philosophical when you look at stuff like the mechanics of it and reasons and stuff. And if you're into Asian martial arts, mysticism, and stuff like Taoism, Buddhism, and all that, stuff that's not really directly related to the martial arts. Although some legends would say that I'm wrong, like Buddha Dharma going eastward, which I don't know if there's any legitimate proof to that myth. Or Sun Wukong, which, again, I don't think a mystical creature that symbolizes Taoism has much to do with how to kick someone's butt and defend your life, or, do a gentlemanly fight and winning for your honor, or whatever purpose you're doing your martial arts. But anyway, this video is primarily a response to two things. One is Pugilism.org, which is a pretty good website, but it has some facts wrong, and the wrong facts need to be taken care of, which is why I'm on this video. Then you have them actually doing a common mistake, which is trying to bundle traditions together when there's two separate traditions, which you cannot deny. Then, secondly, what I'm going to talk about is a response to Eastern martial arts and questions they might have, which are many because Eastern martial arts are very popular right now. They've been popular since Bruce Lee. But anyway, first thing I want to talk about is this book, The Science of Self-Defense by Edmund Price. This is a very lovely book. It is actually the first evidence of a separate tradition from traditional British Pugilism. This was written slightly after the Civil War, and he actually talks about how he was actually wanting to come up with a self-defense system, a system of boxing that would be very practical for the street, for defending your life. And so he comes up with 7 basic strikes, 7 grappling techniques, or not grappling, I mean pairing techniques, which can lead to the grapplings. Then he talks a little bit on grappling and your training method, which I haven't really done because I'm still a victim of corpulency, but I've been trying to fix that recently. So, as I post videos, which I'll have a new video channel, which once I get up, look down there below at the info, and I'll have a lot more martial arts stuff up. Second thing I'm going to talk about is this book, a handbook of boxing and wrestling. It doesn't matter if you're a historical martial artist, a pugilist, or a MMA fighter, or even just a fan of one of the three. This book is very beneficial. It has many drills. It talks about, of course, the wrestling aspect and the boxing aspect. You even have ground fighting in there, believe it or not. It's vaguely talked about because it's a drill, but still, the existence of that is very important. And these drills I've done myself, and it makes you a much better boxer and a wrestler, pretty well. Thirdly, and I'm apologizing for rushing this, but this is Self-Defense for Gentlemen and Ladies by Thomas Hoyer Monstry. He's not American by birth. he was Danish, but then he came to America and he contributed to this very tradition by adding weapons fighting with cane and staff. But he also talked about fighting with sabers, epées, and foils, which, as someone who's also studied some fencing, actually a lot of fencing, I don't like those weapons. The foil, epée, and saber. For what reasons I'm not going to get into, but he's one of the first boxers to recognize that there's something called the power line, which, if you look at my arm, I have a good example of it. The power line is pretty much how your shoulder aligns with the knuckles right there, so that you can you hit a more firm punch. And I've actually punched people with that in a very light manner, and had complaints that it actually hurt a little bit too much, even though it was pretty much probably just a light tap, not really a full force blow. And anyway, you have a lot of very practical stuff, like especially in this manual where you have different ways to parry. Here's some examples of it, but these are not the best examples. These are high parries, and you have your low parries. You have parries with returns, and stuff like this. You have many things actually, and the idea between this is that there's a system where you see a lot of things similar to Wing Chun, because you have your parrying, which is not meant to hit right there, like a lot of boxers like to do, because that's going to hurt and it's going to wear your arms out, so you'll not fight as well. You have parrying where it pretty much stops your opponent's attacks out of the way, controlling your opponent so that you can make your strikes, and it works very well. I can tell you that by sparring. And you also have what's called purring, which is the art of kicking the shins. Wing Chun actually has some of that too, because in Wing Chun, the idea is that you're throwing your punches in chain ways from your traps, which are called perfect parrying in the American tradition, which is what I'm mainly concerned with right now. And now that I mentioned that, going back to this guy, he actually talked about having your blow number 1 and number 2 in consecutive chain punching. So, looking at that, you can actually see a very similar strategy to Wing Chun. And, of course, you have your power from Sullivan's tradition, which like Monster talks about, because Sullivan was one of the later people of this tradition, and he's very famous for his powerful punches, which were observed by this boxing coach, Monster, who pretty much came up with this very practical power line concept, which I don't think anyone before him talked about. And from there, you can actually not worry so much about your power as much as you worry about your speed. You want to practice your infighting very well. And anyway, to sum up, we have two different traditions there. The British tradition, such as Mendoza, Brockton, Humphreys, and Futrell talks about it a lot, and Godfrey. Then you have your American tradition, which is pretty much a lot of the American boxers, but when it comes to source material, Edmund Price, Science of Self-Defense, the complete handbook of boxing and wrestling, and the self-defense for ladies and gentlemen. I recommend everyone reading that material. I will definitely look to make a new channel and talk about technique. So please, once it happens, look down below. I'll have a link. And sayonara.